So welcome, Michael. I'm excited
Thank you.
to chat with you and hear more about your program. And so, describe how your relationship with the land at DMC um, has supported you or impacted you.
I think there were quite a few different ways, and this isn't ordinal per se. Um, I think one is as I let go of certain kinds of preconceptions about how the world worked, um, and some of it were conceptually, I already had those structures in my mind, but it's a next step to actually start to feel them release and the other possibilities to kind of arise. Um, so a part of it was feeling that experience and then having particular formations or structures or presences, however you want to frame it. And I really don't want to try to nail that terminology too much, but more open to what are people experiencing. Um, for me, starting to develop specific relationships that I would return to, so to speak, and that just became a part of my day as much saying hello to this as to a colleague or a guest coming onto the land. And just recognizing that, as with any relationship, there's different forms, different layers to it, and you receive back and you give different kinds of energy, you could say, for lack of a more detailed term. Um, so that was really huge. That over time, the land became populated with friends. In a nutshell, friends. And that I developed those relationships so that even in the most isolated times of COVID, when we had 8 people on the land and we were each pretty much staying to ourselves other than outside, I had these friends. And it was just a beautiful, I felt something, and I didn't feel a need to name it or define it. I felt a deepening relationship, and so that was huge. I think another part is anytime you enter into some kind of uh, articulated relationship, I've got to find a better way to put it. Um, it it brings other things into the realm of possible awareness. And so going out and letting my feet lead me, there was this quality of kind of curious wandering about, where there was some intention of, well, who's going to say hello today? Paying attention to what happens in the corner of my eye and who I happen to stumble upon or what I happen to stumble upon. Um, Other elements of the environment came into focus. Uh, Certain kinds of flowers, trees in certain shapes, and what their life journey was, and just kind of an appreciation, like seeing the trees that are fairly small that grew out of a crack in a rock, and just kind of like being willing to be amazed by the tenacity of that and the power, because the rock has a crack that this tree probably created, or maybe it just took advantage of. On some level it doesn't matter. Here's this really cool thing, and having a sense of the gift to my eyes and to my being to be able to meet this phenomena, this experience. It was it transformed how I experienced nature.
And when did you first develop an interest in Feng Shui or geomancy?
I think the first time I overtly developed an interest, aside from, camping and canoeing and various outdoor activities that were always very enriching and just a ton of fun. I was in grad school and I was writing a paper on geomantic traditions around the world. So I started reading about these things, and I just felt these clicks of connection with my own experience as I read through various source material and started putting things together. And So that would have been probably, in the mid 90s. So at that point, it was more of just kind of a slow burn thing. I'd be in a natural setting and sort of have this awareness of a sense of meaning or connection or import. And it wasn't until I got to then Shambhala Mountain Center, now Drala Mountain Center, and started walking the land with a Feng Shui teacher, and actually starting to name some of the elements. And she would introduce me to relationships and some general sense of categorization, but most importantly to how one can view the experience. I think the title of the program, the particular phrase, an introduction to, is more about like a human introduction, where you think two people might get along and you say, this is my friend Susan, so it's really about entering into a sense of sort of open-hearted possibility and curiosity and playfulness, and letting go of some of the kind of the constraints, embarrassment, shyness, a sense of inadequacy, or any of the panoply of things that we use to limit ourselves, and just saying, oh, there's a presence here. There are ways of connecting and experiencing that are profoundly deep and profoundly joyful. And so I hope that the program, and what my experience has been, the program is a reflection of this journey I've had of developing some awareness and relationship, that it's an introduction to people who can then build their own relationship and have that as an aspect of their lives.
It's beautiful. I love the reference there to uh, this gentleness and curiosity and openness, and I feel like so much of practice is like that, and just to extend that sort of beyond the cushion to um, the natural, the elements and everything around us. That
Yeah.
feels so rich. Yeah. Um, So I'm as you're talking, I'm feeling my own sense of wonder and curiosity and heart just kind of uh, being evoked. So that's really beautiful.
Cool.
I'm imagining what it would be like to actually be there with you and going through this.
Come and do
Um,
the
now
program.
you yes, you talked about this sort of starting in graduate school and was there a specific moment that that kind of drew you in and you knew that this was going to be part of your path and if so, what has that looked like? How has that evolved over the years?
I don't think I mean, there was this one moment where in, I think, the first week or so of my time as director, and we'd just come back from evacuating for the High Park fire. It was all kinds of challenging. we'd lost all our summer revenues, and it was very, very hard. And I bumped into someone who'd been a director at, I think it was before it was even called Shambhala Mountain Center. And she's a wonderful woman, very kind and very sort of low key. And she was just saying hello, and I said hello, and I just had this thought of like, hey, do you have one piece of pith advice for a new director? And she said, yes, let the land support you. And it was kind of, I mean, it wasn't a koan, like it wasn't too, like on the face of it, hearing it, there wasn't like, what does that mean? But there was curiosity about, oh, how deep can that go? Because, I love being in nature. I love nature. I love the kind of terrain up there. But I was aware when she said it that there was a depth to what she meant that I wasn't quite getting. And that there was this sense of possibility that exploring that statement could be really, really helpful and powerful. And then it turned out to be quite accurate. And so then over my time there were lots of different kinds of experiences that really helped out or deepen my relationship, from overt teachings on Feng Shui to teachings from the Shambhala tradition around Werma and Drala and Lungta, and bringing that into my practice and as a part of the cycle and routine of my life there. So there were lots of little pieces. And then I think one significant moment was when I felt confident enough in my experience. I'm definitely not an expert. And if anything, I'm kind of a one-trick pony. Like, I know some things about Drala Mountain Center and can talk with confidence that I'm not misleading anybody, or, that there's a basis for it. So I felt some confidence in the experiential truth of the power of this approach for me to be able to share it with other people. And then after sharing it a few times informally and then as a presentation, seeing the response from people, oh, this is, this changes something for me. This gives me permission, or various ways in which it was this nice moment for people where their gaze kind of rose, and I could feel and you could see, and they reported how their being kind of opened up, and a kind of, helped with the joy part of life and the depth part of life. And so there was that kind of experience. Another kind of experience was people who've been coming there for decades and were much more profound practitioners than I am, and longtime senior teachers and the rest of it, for whom there was something in this approach that connected with them and helped them make sense of their experience in certain ways. It provided a certain kind of structure or a certain kind of something that added to their experience there. And that was a privilege, that was just an amazing privilege, to be able to be a conduit for those kind of moments. It's very much kind of if you taught, those moments where you kind of get out of your own way and just, it's not you, there's this situation where experience is speaking, connecting with experience, and something wonderful happens. So those are, those teachable moments where it's not so much the teacher, it's, the material, and there's a transformational connection, as is talked about in holistic education and such.
Beautiful. Oh, Is there anything else that you would like to share about either how it has impacted your path, or perhaps what potential participants might um, look forward to as part of the program?
Um, I mean, how it's affected my path. Uh, I think we're all pretty deeply habituated to certain kinds of modern thinking. And some of that is very, very powerful, very helpful. Science-based approaches to medicine and all kinds of things are just amazing, and super helpful. Um, I think at the same time, there can be a limit to, what is perceivable through our five senses, or six, from uh, some perspectives. Um, this kind of thing, it was very helpful for me in loosening up my sense of solidity about some of those habituated approaches to experience. I've had certain other experiences through meditation and through martial arts of, energetic movement and other kinds of things. Um, this was a very kind of soft and gentle and slow process that I just felt really kind of less like kind of the ocean carving rocks and more like the air just kind of moving grass, and uplifting smells. And, it was a much more subtle kind of experience. And again, just to make the point, that experience being a softening of some of my solidified, habituated ways of thinking about how the world works and what's real and what's unreal, what's make believe. Just making the whole thing a lot more playful, and a lot more sort of pregnant with possibility, and amazing. So then, it fit in with the wonder of driving up to my house and a big rattlesnake's in the middle of the road. And I'm in a big old Jeep and the rattlesnake stands its ground. And, it's like, we have a conversation and I'm like, oh, I'm in a truck. Don't bite the truck. That won't work out well for you. And I'm going to back up here. And the snake's like, and so there's the whole thing. It's hard to explain, but somehow it was more contextualized. Um, there was a moment where I was driving down from my house and I saw this doe on a road that leads to an isthmus, a little road that slopes down to a lake and then down to some stream. And the doe was acting really strangely, like would sort of dash towards me and then run away. And I was like, what's going on? Does it have rabies, or like, is there a problem? And so I just stopped and sort of watched it. And then it was sort of moving away. So I thought I could go forward a bit. And then when I got line of sight, there was this fawn that couldn't have been more than like 2 or 3 days old. That was like, the way fawn are when they're freshly born, just kind of shaky legs. And it was making its way across across this sort of little land bridge. And the mother deer was protecting it. And it was just there was something so powerful and so beautiful about that moment. And without being able to describe it, somehow it connected with the energy or the space or the quality of being that is there. And it was like another gift from the land that just touched me so profoundly. So these things are hard to describe sometimes, but that process of softening and opening and kind of developing confidence in softness and in opening and in the strength that arises from that as just this like byproduct that's almost irrelevant, except that you feel you can give more, if that makes sense. So all of this kind of comes together as I think we open our hearts and our minds and let go of some habits and start to just be with things and be willing to be awestruck.
That's beautiful. What's possible when we're soft, strong, and open and curious. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
what a gift. What a gift. I was off camera, but when you were talking about the dough, I just the the fawn, it's like, oh my goodness.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was, and like the fawn have this thing where, if they get startled, they'll run into tall grass and then drop down, and then they'll stick their head up and look. And it was just amazing watching that. As you could track these fawn because they'd live around and you'd start to see them and recognize them, and sometimes the sounds they'd make. It was, yeah, so many things that are just amazing up there. And that land is available to us all to visit and is a great training ground for that kind of thing. You've had so much meditation is there, has happened there, and so many teachers. There's a quality of availability of
oh,
our minds and of the land. Yeah.
so much richness.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So, Walking the Land, an introduction to the Feng Shui of Drala Mountain Center from September 8th to the 10th. I understand there's going to be some hiking and some talks and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. There'll probably be like one talk. Uh,
okay.
there'll be conversations, but in terms of one talk where we sit down and I show some pictures and talk about stuff, that'll be on the Friday night. And then I'm thinking of 3 hikes. One of them just a walk up to the stupa, and the stupa has some very unique attributes. It wasn't randomly chosen as a location. Um, so that would be one. And then 2 others to go to some places that have interesting elements. And so, the stupa hike will be, people can drive there if they need to, or they can walk up there and not that strenuous. The other ones will be a little more strenuous. One might be, each one has the potential for having a few moments where you might have to take a break on the way. But so I'd strongly encourage people to bring water, bring a snack, have some decent shoes to hike the land in. And the goal is not, it's not a hiking program. Let me put it that way. The goal is not to have like strenuous hikes or, to get into that aspect of it. It's more to find ways to meet the land, so to speak.
Beautiful. I don't know how many times I've said that in this 25-minute interview, but
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for taking this time to chat with me and yeah, let people know a little bit more about this beautiful practice and upcoming program.